Hi,
Hey, how's it going there, Alexandra?
it's going good. I'm recording. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Sure.
Okay. Thanks for coming. And I guess you only have iPhone. You can't be on video for now.
Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can. I have my computer here. Let's see. I don't know if I have Zoom installed on the computer. Um,
Okay. It's okay
uh,
if you don't. We could still talk and I could ask you
mhm.
questions. But I'd like to see a video of you if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. No, go ahead. Can you record it?
Yeah, I'm actually recording it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want me to pause or stop, let me know. And thank you
Okay.
so much for coming. I'm so sorry I was late.
No, that's okay. No, that's fine. No, I'm pretty flexible. So,
Okay, good. Yeah, the weather here right now is like in our extreme season.
mm,
It's like super duper hot and like it came down suddenly. So our whole schedule changed because like it's so hot that it's like you kind of have to take a siesta during the day.
wow.
And yeah, so the kids get to bed a little bit later now. Sun goes down later, like the sun just went down.
Yeah, I heard that there's a heat wave there in Florida a little bit earlier than what is usually for this time of year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the weather here has been warm. Today was like maybe 86, say 80, 85, something like that. But that's seasonal for this time of year. I mean, we've had some pretty cool, damp weather. This has been a pretty damp spring, although we really haven't had tremendous amounts of rain. It's just that it's been like drizzly and sort of light rain uh,
Mm-hmm.
for several days in a row. But the last 2 days have been really nice.
What state are you in?
I'm located in Maryland. I'm about maybe
Okay.
an hour and a half. I'm about an hour and a half by car and metro from the Washington D.C. area.
Oh,
From
that's
Washington,
so
D.C.
cool.
Yeah. No, I mean it's I live pretty far out. It's a little bit more quiet out this way. I'm actually adjacent to the Patuxent State Park here. I don't know if you're familiar with it. You probably aren't, but it's like 7,200 acres, so there's plenty of open space.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
so quiet and you're a
hmm
writer. It just sounds so cool. Oh,
Yeah, by the way, I did write to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I did that actually this morning. I went ahead and submitted my concerns about this offensive move in the Kharkiv area because it's very basically Ukraine is being handcuffed because these Russian missiles and these glide bombs are being launched just across the border, as far as I can tell, and they don't have a chance. There's no way that Ukraine can intercept these. And we're looking at a city of 1.5 million. And if the Russians do like they did in Mariupol, we could be looking at devastation 4 times worse than the Hiroshima destruction. So that's something that I'm very much worried about, and that's why I went ahead and wrote the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and asked them to spur the administration and also the Defense Department to go ahead and see if we can't allow Ukraine to strike targets, fairly close inside of Russia. Um,
yeah.
and that just makes sense. I mean, it's
In terms of allow, I mean, I know that it's kind of been this de facto kind of, Ukraine's not going to hit Russia, but they have been hitting inside Russia at the military targets, like especially in those northern areas. But I think what also you mean by allow is
mhm,
allow them the military capability because they
mhm.
need is that what you mean?
Well, I mean that U.S. provided weapons right now. Supposedly, there's this expectation, at least according to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, there's this expectation that Ukraine will not use these weapons outside of Ukraine.
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
and this is
I
the issue
remember that.
now. Ukraine has been making their own, I guess, bombs or their own um, drones to attack targets in Russia, but supposedly these are not U.S. provided weapons. So that's the difference there.
Okay, I see. I understand. And you're from Maryland, so you have, is that Andy Harris guy? Is he the Maryland guy for you guys?
Yes. He is he's located, well, his district is on the eastern shore of Maryland. It's a very blue, very conservative area. My issue with Andy Harris is that he's co-chair of the Ukrainian Congressional Caucus, and he voted against the $61 billion Ukraine aid. And he made some statements last August in a town hall meeting that were very disturbing, basically insinuating that he had concerns about Ukraine, about fraud, possible corruption. He was claiming that it was an unwinnable war for Ukraine and that we needed to scale back our Ukraine aid.
Yeah, I mean that's just like largely speculation for a congressman to be saying all that. That's number one. Number two, I mean, like, okay, yeah, so like there's so many corrupt countries in the world. Like, does that mean we just leave them defenseless? And like I just don't understand like what is his rationale now for not passing or not wanting to pass the Ukraine aid package. Like, how could he do that, especially being like the head of the committee? The
I don't know, and he needs to answer that, and it needs to be aired out in public. I am, as far as I can tell, this is the first criticism of Andy Harris in his voting against this Ukraine aid. So it needs to be brought out in the public. This may actually be published in two newspapers. One of them is the Annapolis Gazette, which is the second or third largest newspaper in Maryland, and the other one is the Eastern
nice.
Star Democrat. So, but yeah, he needs to. This needs to be aired out in the public. He needs to be called out on this because it's absurd. I mean,
Yeah. He needs
there's
to
just no
explain
reason.
it.
This delay has cost, by my estimation, tens of thousands of casualties, Ukrainian and civilian and military casualties, by my estimation, because this went on for over 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, I mean, this is catastrophic. According to the former president of Ukraine, he had indicated that this delay was almost like a messaging from Congress that it was okay to ravage and attack Ukraine. And actually, in some ways, he's right. It really is sort of a messaging. This delay, it's been terrible. There's just no excuse. It's there's no rationale. There's no excuse for this
Yeah.
delay. It costs a lot of people lives, and it inches America closer to a direct conflict with Russia when you think about it. So,
Yeah.
mm.
I mean, we're still really in the thick of the war. And, when I've made conservatives here explain themselves, they're like, oh, well, we thought that, the Biden administration's late in the beginning, we should have given them that up front. Oh, but now kind of like they have this kind of like iffiness about it. And it's like, but you guys are the ones delaying the whole process now. And I really think that there's such a laziness and an inaction going on there because they could have like for instance like me and our group, the Protect Ukraine Now group, we were trying to advocate for like more weapons, and they could have worked more with us and tried to get more weapons because obviously that's what the war needs to be won. And they didn't want to do that. They went against us. I've had trouble here, a lot of dilemma for me in like the way I was not treated with dignity during my media advocacy. and like have like even gotten like banned from media outlets that I was once working with because certain people who think that they're in charge of all the media um didn't like how I kept pushing and pressing and challenging and trying to get this like front of mind for everybody. And now it's like I can't even get anything out on Ukraine in the local press. And I'm not the only one. I know another um woman here locally. I won't identify her, but I talked to you guys a little bit about her. She was threatened with a ban and an investigation within the educational sphere for trying to advocate for Ukraine.
Mm,
And
mhm.
like these are professional people. So um but have not treated us with standard of professionalism. So it really it sucks, but like we have to like still try and like make friends and appeal because it's like we don't want to lose our cause. But this is like kind of like a real war in the media with the conservatives, and I think there's a lot of shame for conservatives, and I think there's a lot of what I actually wanted to talk to you tonight about, a lot of backdoor dealing. I think there's a lot of Russian influence. I think there's Hungarian influence locally for me. I've been tracking it for a while. There's a whole backstory and there's people linked. But basically, Tucker Carlson lives in my congressional district on an island, and his father was a Hungarian lobbyist. A former congressman of mine was Connie Mack Jr. was one of the top paid foreign lobbyists by Hungary in year like 2015. That was like post Donbass invasion
Mhm.
when it was fresh. And there's a lot of influence here, I think. And obviously, like Hungary and Ukraine have tensions. But what I wanted to talk to you about is, like it's kind of weird. Like I've kind of like tried to give Tucker Carlson the benefit of the doubt just because like nobody else was. And I figure, well, he's claiming he's a journalist, he's asking questions that nobody is asking. But the problem is he's not counterbalancing those questions with people like us who like are advocating for Ukraine. He's only like railing against Ukraine and he says it's because like everybody else is pro Ukraine. But like, what about the really sensible people who can answer those tough questions that he asks, like, for instance, religious freedom? Now, I wanted you to know that I'm actually traveling to Lviv next week to volunteer with the Ukrainian Catholic University. And I wanted to ask you what I should be looking out for to kind of like debunk these claims that like there's religious persecution in Ukraine. Because I know that you were saying that Tucker Carlson is linked up with this top paid Russian lobbyist to say this crap.
Yeah, right now, as it stands, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, this Bob Amsterdam LLC law firm. I mean, they're messaging the same thing basically, and that is that Ukraine is persecuting Christians. And approximately one month ago, Tucker Carlson and Bob Amsterdam was a participant on his video program, and it was very disturbing because what Tucker Carlson was alluding to the fact that $230 million has been spent in munitions and aid for Ukraine, but yet Ukraine is persecuting Christians. And then Bob Amsterdam, he was participating in the discussion with Tucker Carlson. And what he said was very, very disturbing, because he claimed that he spent I think it was 10 days over in Kiev, and that he was claiming that Ukraine's democracy is a farce, that Russia is, or Ukraine is persecuting Christians, and that Ukraine has a war on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And he's claiming that the Ukrainian Orthodox Church has separated from the Russian Orthodox Church. Well, on paper, they sort of have done that. There sort of is this split. However, it's informal, and there's never been no formal announcement. This split was announced on Facebook, and it was never a formal announcement. Now, the problem is, the story that I'm getting is that many of these priests that are aligned with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, they're under control of the Russian Orthodox Church. And the Russian Orthodox Church is actually an arm of the Kremlin. And by the way, the Russian Orthodox Church recently declared a holy war on Ukraine,
Oh my God.
advocating violence and genocide. That's the story that I'm getting. Now, a lot of this information is actually coming from Stephen Moore. Stephen Moore is he's the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project, located in Kiev, Ukraine. And
Mm-hmm.
he's done some amazing analysis revealing just how much lies, deception, and personal opinions disguised as facts that are being emanated from Bob Amsterdam, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he's saying that the messaging is all the same. Now, here's my issue, and this issue is very serious, because Tucker Carlson brought up the fact we spent $230 billion, and he's claiming that Ukraine persecutes Christians, and we shouldn't be spending money on a country that's has a democracy that's somewhat of a farce or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very serious accusation. And I guess my beef is, okay, let's give Tucker Carlson the benefit of the doubt. If we spent $230 billion and we're supporting a country, Ukraine, that's persecuting Christians, and it's a Timbuktu democracy, and it's a farce. Well, I mean, obviously, then that means the American taxpayers have been defrauded. Now, you and I both know that this is all these accusations made by Tucker Carlson are pretty much false and misleading and grossly inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
But I say let's get this out. Let's get this out, the truth, and maybe they should have a congressional investigation. I mean, they're making these accusations. The taxpayers have supposedly spent almost $250 billion. We need to find out who's telling the truth, the facts, and nothing but the facts. That's what needs to come out.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem. There are a number of clergy, priests with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church that are being charged with crimes by Ukraine. And the reason being, at least according to Stephen Moore, is because they're involved with helping the Russian invaders.
Right. They're
So when you think about it,
collaborators.
they're collaborators. So they have every right. Ukraine has every right, based on this, assuming that this is correct now, they have every right to prosecute these priests. Now, Tucker Carlson's claiming he's taking this one step further by claiming that these priests are being terrorized by secret police of Ukraine. This is the first time I've ever heard of that. That's a new one on me. Maybe you're from Ukraine. Maybe you're are aware of something like that. But I don't believe there's secret police in Ukraine. But that's just my knowledge.
I'm not Ukrainian I'm not of Ukrainian descent. I'm married into a Ukrainian family. I'm American. I'm of Western European descent. Just like you. I mean, I know you're not Ukrainian either. Um, like for me personally, I think that there are, there could be secret police anywhere. There's informants everywhere, like including our own country. And, you know, I really feel like the collaborators with the church, they're just as much secret informants or police as people trying to find out who they really are. I mean, in that are Ukrainian, pro-Ukraine. So, I don't know like how many of these collaborators have been caught. I know like I've read about it like about a year ago, and I've read about like a few cases, but I don't think it's as prolific as Carlson's making it. And Ukraine's not a perfect wonderland. It's not Disneyland, and neither is our own country or our own democracy. I would be pro presidential elections, even like during the war, like after Zelensky's supposed 5-year term is up, but it's in the very constitution of Ukraine, in their democratic constitution, that there would be no elections during wartime. And we have to respect that country's constitution, because not all democracies look like the US. That's that's that. But you know, the from what I know is, yes, the Orthodox Church um basically excommunicated itself, and the overwhelming population of this church, which is like millions and millions and millions of people. It's like one of the top two most popular churches in Ukraine, agreed with it. They wanted it. Like this was overwhelming support. They wanted to separate from Kremlin. They wanted to separate from a patriarchate Kirill, who's now like stating he wants a holy war, as you said. So is this little schism that, well, not little schism, but like big schism, like this well accepted schism in Ukraine, is this the religious persecution? Like, is this like the basic like claims that they're making? Is the Orthodox Church, Carlson?
I think Carlson is just alluding to the fact that Ukraine is declaring war on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. But even more important, and this is probably the most important thing, there's a pending law, and it's a law in which it's called Draft Law 8371. This is a bill that would prohibit Ukrainian religious organizations from affiliating with religious organizations that are based or have a management in a country that's waging war against Ukraine. And so Bob Amsterdam, he actually traveled into Ukraine fighting against this draft law 8371. Now, the problem with Bob Amsterdam, and this is, once again, this is information that I'm getting is primarily from Stephen Moore, but the problem with Bob Amsterdam is that he's got a client, and his client is a rather dubious person by the name of, he's an oligarch by the name of Vadym Novynskyi. And Vadym Novynskyi, he was known, he was a former member of parliament in Ukraine, and he was known as Putin's whip. He originally was from the Mariupol area, and so he
What a
was
shame.
promoting, vigorously promoting pro Moscow slash Kremlin um, laws, basically. And he was he was one of Putin's, I guess, trusted members of parliament in Ukraine. He was almost like a mole. And
Yeah.
the problem with this, Bob Amsterdam LLC, this law firm, is that he, Vadym Novynskyi, is a client of Bob Amsterdam LLC
Hmm.
law firm. And according to Stephen Moore, Stephen believes that Amsterdam is paying about $200,000 a year to Nelson Mullins Etal, which is a lobbying firm, to spread Novynskyi slash Amsterdam asserting that Ukraine is persecuting Christians. I mean, this is actually kind of serious because when you think about it, this is going to undermine both congressional support and public support for
Oh,
Ukraine.
yeah.
That's what it's aimed to do. But
Yes, it does,
it's
especially
very
among the conservatives. And I have an email campaign, and I have conservative people that I'm connected with all over the region. And I get feedback from like people, religious people, and not a lot, but like from like really, really ultra conservative and religious, politically active people. A few of them are really, really heated up about this religious persecution thing, and they're also get really heated about Hungary, because Hungary, and the news site americanconservative.com, they have a big lobby off these conservative groups, these far right groups. Of There's a lot of influence, and it is a cause for concern, because it really, really, really undermines American support, because it's like, why are we, especially the Christians, supporting a country that persecutes Christians in this
exactly.
war?
Hmm.
And we're not. And like what they're not. And like Ukraine is one of the most Christian countries. You want to talk about persecution of Christians? Talk about the Jehovah Witnesses in Russia. Those are Christians too. And like I have friends in Ukraine that are Jehovah, and you know, they're they over there in Russia, they're getting like literally like their Bibles are getting burned. They're getting rounded up, and
Exactly.
they knock on our doors here, and they give us Russian literature, and they talk about the persecution in Russia. What about those people? Why doesn't Tucker talk about that? And so I agree with you and Stephen Moore that there's a definite link between these high-paid lobbyists and the airtime they get with Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I mean, this is a disinformation campaign that's underway to conceal the ongoing, for example, destruction of Protestant churches in Ukraine. I mean, they're claiming that Ukraine is persecuting Christians, and it literally turns the truth upside down on its head, because Russia is the country that's persecuting Christians. They're the ones that have murdered
500.
30 priests. They're the ones that have bombed 600 churches.
600
Or
churches.
They're the ones that have arrested and imprisoned and tortured Crimean Tartars, Jehovah's Witnesses. And this is a thing that needs to come out. This is a type of issue that needs to be brought out in Congress. This needs to be brought out and aired in front of the American people. Because if we
Mhm.
spend almost $250 billion, we need to get to the bottom of the truth here. And the bottom of the truth, in my opinion, and I feel very strongly, and so do you, is that Ukraine is one of the most religious tolerant countries in the world, while Bob Amsterdam is stating just the opposite, that Ukraine is the least religious tolerant country in the world. And that's what he stated. This is a farce.
That is a sweeping statement. I mean, like,
Well,
let's face it. Ukraine. can, I'm sure, I've heard from very educated people who live there, make advancements in their freedoms still, but this is like a very, very passionate society for freedom. And, you know, like I just know Ukrainians, and like they they really, really want their freedom. And you know, if we have prominent American conservative journalists saying that this is not a real democracy. This is persecution of religious. I really think they should turn their eyes to Russia and give a little attention there. Who they have a president who's been president for 20 years and who violates the Constitution every time. He can legally. It is the Russian people's duty to legally remove Vladimir Putin from the presidency because he violated the law so many times staying president. And you know homosexuals are persecuted there. And I don't know um how open homosexuality is in Ukraine, but you know this is another issue that I've heard from our groups that are is being used in these like ultra religious um factions that oppose, LGBTQ and everything. So, but yeah, um they need to talk about this in Congress. And it's a very, very it's just like look at the links with Tucker, and it's just it's very biased. And I think that Tucker Carlson should talk to some people in our group too. And if he really like wants to present himself as a fair journalist, like he should talk to some of us who like have our points, and we should ask him about the lobbyists he talked to, and who he's linked up.
I
And
I
maybe
just
maybe like, instead of just visiting Russia, like visit Ukraine too. Do you think he'll be welcome there?
The problem with Tucker Carlson is Tucker Carlson, in my opinion, is a media sensation. He's a news entertainer, and I
Hmm.
emphasize the word
Right.
entertainer. I don't think he's interested in getting the truth. I think early on for the last several years, he differentiated himself from everybody else. And by standing apart and being different, somehow this got a lot of attention, a lot of notoriety. And I think he's playing on this. I think he's just grandstanding his own political, or let's say media play on this, and getting a lot of attention. So, this gets him a lot of viewers. So I think it's almost like he's just a businessman trying to drum up support with these false, extremely inaccurate statements, and he has a huge following, and I think that's what's going on here.
Well, since he's such an entertainer, I think we should still hold the entertainers accountable. And I think it would be entertaining for him to entertain one of us, and talk to one of us about um the truth and the other side. And um like, again, I'm not saying that um Ukraine is perfect and has a perfect society, perfectly free society. We sure as hell don't, especially with all the media bans going on. But um yeah, we're gonna have to keep an eye on this. And when I go there to Lviv, I'm going to talk to some more people about this and try and get some more insight about this, and really, really like try and get objective points of view. Um,
Um, yeah, and you brought up a good point there, and I think interviewing some of the Catholics in Lviv would be a great start. But also, Russia has particularly gone after Baptists because they believe that Baptists in Ukraine are American spies. And one example of this is somebody by the name of a priest by the name of Azatan. He was a Baptist children's pastor, and he was captured by Russian security forces while evacuating Christians fleeing Russian occupied Ukraine. And what they did, they put a bag over his head, they used electrocution methods wired to his genitals. They basically just tortured him. Fortunately, he survived. He's one of the lucky ones because some of the others have actually died. But his captor said, quote unquote, that Baptists are American spies. So there's a
Yes.
deep belief in this. The bottom line here is that Russia is the one persecuting Christians. Uh, Ukraine is one of the most religious tolerant countries in the world, and they also have an even higher you have a higher Christianity numbers than even in the United States. I think the United States, I think like something like 30% of the people in the United States consider themselves to be ardent Christians, and in Ukraine, I think it's like 31 or 32%.
Wow.
But
And
yeah,
just
I mean, basically, it's kind of ironic that Bob Amsterdam is claiming that Ukraine is conducting
right.
a war against religion, but it's really Russia. They're the ones that are declaring war against Christianity, and that's well documented because any reliable religious expert that does not have a vested financial interest in the
Right.
Russian Orthodox Church or Russia, any bona fide religious expert would clearly say that Russia is the country that persecutes Christians, and this is well documented, by the way.
Yeah, I mean it's totally slanted. So, that's really interesting. You guys are keeping an eye on who those connections. So, we'll continue to keep an eye on it. It's 2 minutes left, because I have a free account. So, are there any like questions you think that I should ask in Lviv and or like probe to in the religious community? Like, what would
Um,
you want to know?
Basically, I would just ask them point blank. Do you believe that there's religious freedom in Ukraine, and just make it an open question and ask them why they think that. It would be very interesting to see what they say,
Yeah.
and then tell them that in the United States there's a lot of propaganda being disseminated that
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine is persecuting Christians and that there's a war against the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Um,
I'd like
and
to know what some of these students at the university would say about that. My God. Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I would. Yeah, I would definitely ask them that particular question. That would be probably the most important question right off the top of my head. Um, And I would ask them, what do they think about Russia? Do they believe that Russia is a religious tolerant country? That would be a very interesting answer on that one too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Ay, ay, ay. All right, so I'll do that, and it was really nice talking to you. Thank you for interviewing me. I think I'm gonna put this in like a larger film that I'm gonna make for when I come back from Lviv, but I'll let you know if I post it sooner then. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hmm.
Take care, and you're the
Okay.
best. You're
All right.
amazing.
Very good talking to you, Alexandra.
Yeah, thank you for so much for your time. Bye.
Okay. Hmm.